It's no secret that I'm not a big fan of Bethesda games. I don't hate them, I just think they're overrated. I would honestly say that I think they're mediocre. Now, before you get your panties in a twist, the definition of mediocre is simply of moderate or low quality, value, ability, or performance. Let me emphasize moderate. I think Bethesda's games are okay. I'll admit I made one mistake here, and that was installing the game on a hard drive rather than a solid state drive, and it went very poorly. However, I did wind up remedying that later. So if you take anything away from this impression video, it's that for the love of God, install it on a solid state drive. I've decided for this impressions video, instead of my typical Xenoblade Chronicles review, I'm just going to explain everything I did for the first 5 days I played of Starfield. So starting with the introduction was an intro, I guess. This is the only area in the game where the player can get away with being an absolute bastard without any repercussions, so I zapped my fellow miners whenever I got the chance.
Is there anyone else to bother?
We also get some of the resource collecting gameplay, but that just made me want to play Deep Rock Galactic instead. Deep Rock Galactic's gameplay focuses on gathering resources and extracting with your allies, as enemies attempt to stop you in increasingly difficult waves. This adds a much-needed sense of urgency and ultimately gamifies the objective. Starfield lacks this gamification, and in this regard, it makes mining and resource gathering in general feel more like a chore than anything else. After I got bored of being a sadist since no one was actually dying, I finally decided to do what I was paid to do and picked up some relic, which triggered a hallucinogenic episode.
Oh, hi. Hi, guys, and welcome to a new video.
What the hell is even that?
This is the point where the player is able to make the character. Meet Tucker the Trucker, an amalgamation of every Bethesda fanboy rolled into one amorphous blob. He looks like my childhood friend's alcoholic father. Unfortunately for everyone around Tucker, he has a bounty on his head and also suffers from severe autism. Tucker cannot tell the difference between friend and foe, which the unfortunate folks at the mining colony found out. After that fiasco, a cool black guy named Barrett, no, not that cool black guy named Barrett, gives Tucker his ship as well as a twice as cool robot called Vasco. I love Vasco. He has no concept of personal space. This is also where I switched my installation drives, making the gameplay a lot more fluid. After that, Tucker took off to the stars, killed some space pirates, then flew off to some shithole called New Atlantis. He did a few side quests, gave up on a couple more, and finally continued the story. This is where I met the Constellation crew.
Oh, we appear to have a visitor.
Welcome to Constellation. We have a lot to talk about. Would you care to tell us what happened to our friend? Why you're here and he isn't?
And I can say I already don't like any of them. They look like some sort of secret society full of people who think they're better than me. Seriously, look at this architecture. It screams no pores allowed. Tucker gets railroaded into finding more relics for these guys. The first quest line requires me to take the lovely Sarah Morgan, which means I have to drop Vasco, which isn't great. So I fly around the cosmos doing dumbass shit, stealing contraband, and wait, this shit is worth bank. But I can't sell it because the police in this game actually do their job. So I spent an hour clicking through the map trying to find a place to sell it, as well as killing space cultists, until I wound up at this little outpost, where I couldn't find a place to sell it. It was at this point I was getting bored, so I took a break and made myself a steak. Day 2, I wanted to get into the thick of it. Also, Tucker was hungry. So he stole this guy's sandwich, which caused everyone in the outpost to aggro on his ass. So he ran halfway back to his ship and the outpost became neutral again. So he tried to steal some fruit too. This did not go as planned. Then we did some more story and more story. Luckily, this story had some pretty big emphasis on combat, which kept me interested, even if the combat is still somewhat meh. After that, Tucker flew to a random planet to drop off the contraband. It was becoming more of a hassle than it was worth. Whilst on this planet, a spaceship happened to land close to me, so I had Tucker wander over and get shot at. He panicked and then proceeded to kill everyone. Also, just a heads up, the companion AI is the worst companion AI I have ever seen in a game. Also, Tucker stole the ship. Then Tucker helped out some random lady with her bounty, in which he showcased a rare moment of social awareness and managed to talk down the bounty hunter. Feeling good about himself, Tucker flew back to the United Colonies only to have been busted for having contraband. Apparently, the spaceship had distracted him from his original intentions. So he warped out of that situation to a random planet. On this random planet, he found a weapons facility. To be honest, I thought it was a pretty cool arena, but as I was playing, I just found myself thinking I'd rather play Unreal Tournament instead. Unreal Tournament was a classic arena shooter series set in the future. It featured intense, fast-paced FPS action with a multitude of crazy weapons. Unlike Starfield, enemies aren't damage sponges and don't take 40 bullets to kill. Also, the enemies had a sense of self-preservation, making combat always feel frantic. Starfield's enemies, on the other hand, purposely eat bullets. Most importantly, Unreal Tournament was hilariously gory. It was the Mortal Kombat of arena shooters. Good shit. After that, Tucker fucked off to a populated planet and purchased a shitty sword. Reminiscing about his days of being a fat, gross otaku, he wandered out of the city limits and started slaughtering the local wildlife, like in the animes he used to watch. I'ma be real, traversing the terrain and slapping the alien life really just made me want to play Xenoblade Chronicles X instead. Xenoblade Chronicles X was an open-world RPG on the Wii U. Yes, that's right, the Wii U. It featured a beautiful open world with tons of locations and unique wildlife. Unlike Starfield, players get access to vehicles about halfway through the game. These vehicles don't just expedite travel time, they unlock more locations for the players to travel. Also, you can completely customize a mech, and that's really cool. On day 3, and day 4 I guess, I did some side quests in grinding. Among the things Tucker did was make drugs, visit a space hotel, fail at persuasion, and attempt to shoot up a school, which he couldn't do because Bethesda is a bunch of Puritans. The side quests in this game are a mixed bag. Some of them are fun, and some of them are just fetch quests and boring. On day 5, I decided to continue the story. Previously, that one smarmy bitch, Sarah, yeah, her, she mentioned that she was worried about Barrett. So Tucker flew his happy ass over to whatever shithole he was at the beginning of the game, and was greeted once again by the lovely Lynn. I never mentioned this, but she was the boss of the whole operation at the beginning of the game. After Tucker had taken his galactic vacation, pirates attacked the mining operation again and killed several guys, as well as kidnapping Barrett and the slightly less cool white dude, Heller. I neglected to mention him because he wasn't as cool as Barrett. So Tucker tracked them down. Heller was on a random moon, and Barrett was in a pirate encampment. After mercilessly gunning down the pirates, Tucker finally found Barrett. Somehow, using Tucker's trucker charm, he was able to persuade the pirate to let both him and Barrett leave without any violent escalation.
He has been more entertaining than most hostages. Barrett has some good friends, it seems. Very well. You're all free to go.
After returning to the high-strung self-important club at the lodge, Tucker set off with Sam Coe to find another artifact on Aquila. Unfortunately, Sam refused to leave his annoying child at home where it belonged, so Tucker jettisoned it out of the garbage chute along the way there. The two arrived at Aquila City, Sam being none the wiser, and headed off to do their objective. Once they arrived at the bank, the two were unfortunately cock-blocked by a couple of robbers holed up in the planet's only bank. Why am I emphasizing that this is the planet's only bank? Because every settled planet in this game only has one city on it. Sensing he was needed, Tucker got incredibly drunk and defused the situation by finessing the thieves.
You have to believe me, we never meant to take hostages. Nobody's been hurt. So maybe the judge won't come down too hard on us.
Booze boosts persuasion skills in this game, man. It's crazy. I wish booze would boost my ability to talk to women. After that bullshit, Tucker and Sam search for the maps that reveal the artifact's location. Apparently, Sam's father grabbed the map before we did, so we paid the geezer a visit. Tucker tried to persuade the old man, but failed, so he shot him in the face, killing him instantly. But not really, because the game didn't allow me to do that, and Bethesda's a bunch of Puritans. So I reloaded the game, had Tucker take a shit ton of more drugs that also boosted persuasion, and tried to persuade the old fart again. This time he succeeded on the first try. We got the maps, headed to the location, which also happened to be the base of those idiot bank robbers from before. Being fed up with peaceful solutions, Tucker whipped out his cool sword and went medieval on everyone's ass. The two found the artifact, grabbed it, and left. Then they finally headed back to the lodge, and that's the point where Tucker handed in his resignation forms and I gave up on this game. Overall, in my 22 hours of Starfield, I spent 22 of those hours wishing I was playing something else. Starting with the combat, it's the best combat we've had in a Bethesda RPG, which isn't saying a lot considering the combat in these games has always been bad. Players will also participate in space combat. The space combat's pretty simplistic, at least the little I saw. This is fine because space sims are just way too convoluted for the casual gamer. Exploration of planets is somewhat lacking. A lot of planets are boring and the landmarks are few and far between. Unfortunately, Bethesda lacked the foresight to give players access to ground vehicles, or even allow the players to fly their ship around on the planet's surface. This is especially annoying because a lot of the landmarks have nothing of value. Walking and jetting around for 10 minutes in real time is not fun. Spaceflight was okay. I never really spent an extended period of time in it. It was just better to use the star map to fast travel. I can't really make a comment on either the crafting or the outpost system as I never ended up trying them. Well, that's half lying. I did try to mod my guns and spacesuits a few times, but I never had the right resources. I usually had ended up selling them because, as with all Bethesda games, Starfield has an encumbrance system. There's a personal note, I hate encumbrance systems in games. They're just not enjoyable to work around. That said, I don't think that trying these out would have really changed any of my opinions on the game. It feels like Starfield does a lot of things, but it doesn't do enough to keep me as a player invested in doing those things. I know this first impression video is a bit biased, and I put in a little less time than I should have. I originally had wanted to put 30 hours into Starfield, but I wound up just getting bored with it, to be honest with you. So I decided to do my due diligence and reached out to my friend Krayowitz, who had been enjoying the game, and I proceeded to ask him why.
So why do I enjoy playing Starfield? Honestly, for a Bethesda game, it's got the things in a Bethesda formula that I enjoy, like the life sim elements, and it pulls a lot of other stuff back, which is a problem, but the things that I really cared about being good are much better in this game, like the combat for guns specifically, because the melee is something else, is really good. It's very, very enjoyable, picking up new weapons and see how they perform, how you can alter them and things like that. The gunplay is really good. It's very satisfying going through different like enemy groups and just like slaughtering them or killing a bunch of crazy ass like aliens on separate planets. And people are like, oh, but when you go to a different planet, it's all barren and there's not like anything on it, as a chance to just have nothing. And I'm like, that's fine with me. It's honestly like a space version of Daggerfall. because Daggerfall's got miles and miles of just empty space with like one or two enemies very randomly or things like that. That's not a problem because of all the other things that finally added mantling back. Mantling hasn't been part of a Bethesda game since fucking Daggerfall. And it honestly just feels like a space Daggerfall to me, and I know it'll eventually get better, but right now I'm still having a good time just playing it. Like exploring things, taking pictures, and just having a good time in NASA punk stuff. And even then, they added a New Game Plus, and the New Game Plus is actually worth going for. Because usually New Game Plus is you just start over with like your stats, but this actually gives you, one, a lore reason in the game, which is cool, and two, it's definitely worth doing it every time. The main story is still like the weak point of the game, but everything, all of the side content's really fun. And the game visually, from like a style perspective, looks really cool to me. I like building ships, I love shooting things in the game. It's all just like generally a really fun time for me. And this is not an excuse, what I'm about to say, but the modding community is going to make this game ridiculous.
I think we both have valid opinions on this game, though they may differ. After all, each person's experience in life and in games is different. And with that, I bid you adieu with the following statement from Todd Howard.